Hi, great to see you, and lovely to see so many people supporting friends and family. Now, I'm aware that this is a great occasion, very special for us as a church. And I'm aware there's people here saying, wow, what a great occasion. There's others saying, wow, it reminds me of when I was baptized. But then I'm very aware that there's other people saying, what the dickens was that all about? All this splash in the water stuff. Is this some sort of initiation ceremony into something? Is there a secret handshake that you have? No, none of that. But what I want to do is just to show from this little account that Simon's read, something of the change that has happened. Now, this account is given by a man called Luke. He's regarded as a very good historian. Into his accounts, he puts lots of little details specific to people who could only have known the culture and the customs at that time of the day. So it's a really great account that Luke gives us. Now, he introduces us in verse number 2, if you have a Bible, he introduces us to this man called Zacchaeus, and he tells us he was a chief tax collector. Now, the point of that is this. You think of this. The nation that he was in was overrun by the Roman Empire, and he's collecting taxes for the enemy, if you like. Just to try and illustrate it, you think of a Frenchman or a Dutchman who is working for the Nazis in World War II. That's the kind of scenario. Not a well-liked man by his fellow countrymen. But on top of that, one of the things was that they were notorious for cheating people out of their taxes. They were paid by the Romans, but they would add onto the account and they would scrape off all this fraudulent taxes for themselves. And we're told that he was a chief tax collector and he was wealthy. So he'd done very well out of that. So you can imagine what kind of ethics this man has got. He's prepared to take stuff from his fellow countrymen and get rich himself. It was all about himself. He didn't worry about taking advantage of others. It was all for himself. Now, he knew something. This is interesting. But he knew something about Jesus. He wanted to see Jesus. Now, was that just curiosity? Had someone told him something? Luke doesn't tell us. He just knows something about Jesus, and it's enough to trigger this thought, I want to see him. I want to meet him. I want to find out about him. What makes this guy tick? So he comes on this journey to find Jesus. Now, it's interesting again, but Luke doesn't give us the details. But what Luke does tell us is the result of his meeting with Jesus. He doesn't say this is what was said, this is how he replied, this is how he was thinking, this is how he was feeling. He just tells us this is the result of Zacchaeus meeting with Jesus. And you'll see that down in verse 8 if you have that passage. But it says this, Zacchaeus, he stands up, he says to the Lord, look, Lord, here and now, I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I've cheated anyone out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount. Now, here is a dramatic change for a selfish, get rich quick at anyone's expense sort of person. And it's quite remarkable, isn't it? Half of my possessions I'm going to give to the poor. If I've cheated anyone, I'll give them back 4 times the amount. Now, you imagine if he's cheated you out of say, let's just pick a number. Supposing over a number of years he's cheated you out of 10,000 quid. He's now going to give you 40,000 back. That is massive. That's a huge change. You're going, oh, what's happened to this? This is good. There's a real change that's come over him. It's radical. It's if you like, it's a 180-degree turnaround in his life. Now, he's not excusing himself. He's not even saying, "Oh, I'm sorry for the wrong that I've done." He's not even saying, okay, I'll give the money back. He's saying, no, 4 times as much. 4 times as much. This is big. He's not saying, I think I might need to just tweak my life a bit, just try and improve my standards a bit. This is something much deeper. He's now gone completely. He's turned around completely. And it's, if you like, it's a change at the deepest level. Change at the heart level. He's not saying I'm taking on a new kind of set of rules or something. This is something far deeper than that. It's the very motivational structure of his own life. Life is going to be completely different in this moment. Now, it's something that Jesus spoke about. This is, if I could, I don't want to be rude, but if I could say this is the difference between Jesus and every other religious or non-religious ideology in the world. Jesus spoke about you need to be born again. Now, we've all heard that phrase and misused, but what Jesus is talking about is not, I've got a new idea, I've turned over a new leaf, but this is like it's so radical, it's like a new start. It's like starting life all over again in a completely different way. It's something that Jesus spoke about, and it's what's happening here in Zacchaeus' lifetime, in Zacchaeus' life. Now, this radical, if you like, this radical reset, what does this mean? When he gets up and he says, look, life's completely different now. I want to change. I want to be completely different. Now, what does this mean? Now, Jesus tells us exactly what's happened in verse number 9. Jesus' explanation is, today, salvation has come. That's what Jesus says. Salvation has come. Now, what does that mean? It means salvation is when, in the Bible, salvation is when someone is saved, someone is delivered, someone is rescued. It's when God delivers someone from their own selfish way of life, from doing life without God, and often not just messing things up for themselves, but messing things up for others. And as we saw with Zacchaeus, taking advantage of others. The change comes from that selfish, me first way of life that comes natural to us all, to I want to put God first in my life, and I want to serve others in my life. Hence the half my goods going to the poor stuff. Now, what made this happen? What made this happen? You see, he met Jesus and listened to what Jesus had to say. So what was it that Jesus had to say that made such an impression on him? And you'll see that in verse number 10, the last verse that Simon read for us is, the Son of Man, that's Jesus referring to himself, the Son of Man came to find and save those who were lost. That's Jesus' mission statement. He'd come to find people who didn't know where they were spiritually, people who had lost their way in life, people who were doing wrong things, people who knew that they needed a change in life. Jesus says, I've come to find people like that and to rescue them. And in this simple little story, we discover the whole, if you like, the foundation of what Christianity is built on Jesus coming to rescue people who have messed up. People like you, people like me, who've messed up. And earlier in Luke's account, we didn't read it, but earlier in Luke's account, we hear Jesus saying this, that the Son of Man is going to suffer, die, and rise again. That's what Jesus would do in order to rescue people like you and me. That he would suffer, die, and rise again. And once Zacchaeus knows, once he's listened to Jesus and he knows Jesus has come on a rescue mission, not to condemn us, but to rescue us, then his life is changed forever. Now, we've heard from these 5 friends, haven't we? Lovely, those stories. You know, we've heard from Travis and Daniel, Gina, Nella and Bethan. We've heard their stories that the same thing has happened to them. They met the Lord Jesus Christ. Through the pages of the accounts that we have of Jesus Christ, they met with him, they heard what he had to say, they recognized that Jesus came to rescue them. And that has changed their life. I find that so great, so encouraging. Jesus is still changing lives today. And we heard their story of how, they've done things that they never thought possible. And everything has become new in their life. Now, what is interesting, I think, is this. You see, just like Zacchaeus, we don't know the kind of the mechanics of how it worked for him. And these 5, I don't know the exact details of how did it work for them. What were they thinking? What kind of triggered it in their minds? We don't know those details, but we've heard the account. We've heard of how Jesus has changed people's lives. Now, baptism is a great picture of what God has already done in their life. And I want us to think of it like this. You see, what they're saying is this. They believe. And we heard, didn't we, Dan say that he'd read the God Delusion and all that atheistic stuff. He's come from that kind of background. But now they're saying this. They're saying they believe that Jesus Christ was a real man who walked in this world and then suffered, died on a cross, he was buried, and then he rose again to show that the price he paid on the cross was sufficient to pay for their wrong. And they're saying, that's what I believe. And we saw them this afternoon go into that pool, didn't we? They walked into the room, they walked down into the pool, and then they were put under the water. And then they were brought up again. And in doing so, what they're saying is this. They're saying that it's, as it were, spiritually, metaphorically. I walked in this world in the old way of life. And then when they put me under that water, it's symbolically, I died to my old way of life. I'm no longer the same. And when they were brought up out of the water, they're saying, I now live a new life. A new life, just like Jesus came out of the grave and walks a new life. So these people are saying, I'm now living for Jesus. It's a new life. He's given me new life. I know I'm forgiven. Everything is different. I want to live to praise him. I want to live to tell others about him, which is what they've done this afternoon, isn't it? They've told us that. I believe in Jesus Christ, his life, his death, his resurrection, and I'm following him. What a wonderful illustration baptism is of the Christian life. Now look, just as I finish, could I say I recognize maybe there's someone here, and maybe you're saying, that's all very well for you, but I don't buy it. I got questions. That's great. It should raise questions for us, shouldn't it? It should raise questions. Well, if you've got questions and you're saying, well, yeah, it sounds okay, but what about this and what about that? What about the other? Well, can I say, we got one of our friends here, Graham. He does a course for people just like that. It's great. Come with your questions. You can ask any question you like. Graham will deal with those. You come with them. Graham loves to take people and take people through that thinking process with those doubts, with those kind of things that, I could never, no, not unless you answer this one. Well, come and speak afterwards, and we would love to introduce you to Graham if that's your position. Maybe there's someone here, and maybe you're saying, do you know, actually, I would like to believe in Jesus like that. I would like to know that change in my life. I'd like to know forgiveness. I'd like to know that weight taken off me, like Dan spoke about. I would like to know that Jesus is with me, that God is there for me all the time, like Bethan was saying. If you're one of those people, if you'd like to know more, well, come and speak to Simon or myself afterwards. We would love to chat with you. We would love to give you something to read that will be helpful to you. And then maybe there's someone here, and maybe you're saying a little bit like Gina, I believe it. Yeah, I've believed it for some time now, Yes, that's where I am. But you've never actually made that step, and you've never actually said, well, actually, do you know what? I want to go public with this. I want to tell people, and I want to do that baptism thing. Well, if you're one of those, again, come and talk to either Simon or myself or someone here, and we'd love to try and help you with that, give you something to read. But it's been a great day, hasn't it? And I hope that gives you a little illustration of, a little understanding of what baptism is, what these 5 people have done. It's a revolutionary, radical reset in a person's life. God bless.